Yo, welcome everyone, Sanjay Uchiha here. Welcome back to the channel. So, it's been a while since we've done a live reaction or reaction to anything here on the channel outside of, the Boruto Two Blue Vortex reaction reviews. And, just the other day I bumped up into this video by Wildfang Productions that I, saved to my YouTube watch later. Two Blue Vortex's time skip problem. Is Boruto a bad protagonist? Now, for those of you who've been, watching my Boruto Two Blue Vortex reaction reviews, especially, I think more recently, like, say, just even this year, you know that, for the most part, I don't have, or at least I haven't done, like, a dedicated, video when it comes on to discussing and analyzing Boruto's character in the time skip. However, the topic of his character just feeling like it's lacking something has been a point I've touched on in a lot of my, streams here and there over the course of 2026 so far. So I'm saying to myself, all right, let's see what somebody else has to say about it. So definitely check out Wildfang Productions. Wildfang. I'll leave the link to his video in the description below. But I'm hoping this can be a nice, healthy, and fun reaction discussion, if I could phrase it that way. And of course, for those of you who, since those streams and those points I've made are kind of scattered here and there, I'll just kind of give my 2 cents, apart from, giving my 2 cents on this guy's thoughts. When it comes down to Boruto's character. And for me, it's kind of like what I've said on stream before, right? It's just that when it comes down to Two Blue Vortex, yes, the stoic, the Sasuke, the Uchiha like energy, the awesome techniques, the Boruto's badass. But I think when you go beyond that, it feels like there's not much more to really go on. And I think even outside of that, because when you come from like the beginning of Boruto's story, right? When you had the whole, the Chunin exam or the Momoshiki arc, a lot of his developments were in that arc. And then I think outside of that, it's kind of just almost static for the most part. Like, he doesn't really go through any big empathetic, like, you can feel sorry for him in a lot of cases, but I don't feel like he really jumps up in my head when it comes on to like, oh, like he's this super amazing, deep character. Like, he has his depth, but it doesn't feel like it progresses any further than that. And I think one of the issues is that the big turnaround of omnipotence and what it should have stood for, those blue eyes will take everything away from you, it ended up not being as impactful as I would have thought, personally speaking, because yeah, Boruto's quote unquote lost and everything, and he has to be a rogue ninja that's, on the run from the entire world. But when it comes down to the manga, at least, it never really registers to me like on a high emotional standpoint where I'm like, oh shit, yo, I can really feel for Boruto. I feel sad for him. Like, it feels like the whole plot point of him losing everything kind of fell flat as it relates to just emotional resonance from me as a reader. It's just like, it's kind of like a whatever type of situation. And I think that's one of the big contributing factors when it comes on to like, yeah, he's cool in time skip, but I don't know, something about how the story is structured doesn't really lead him into a situation where I could say like, yeah, Boruto has got like just a lot of depth to his character. But anyway, let's hear what Wildfang has to say. I think I've rambled on long enough. Let's go.
Right now, Boruto is probably the most badass character in modern anime. That 3-year time skip in between parts 1 and 2 completely transformed him from a bratty, annoying little kid into a stoic, Otsutsuki level shinobi.
And to be fair, even the whole bratty little kid, to be honest, that whole bratty little kid type of concept or idea or impression, I think that was pretty much done away with ever since the end of the Momoshiki arc. I feel like the initial introduction to Boruto via the movie seems like it left like this Mandela effect, like Boruto. Like, he gave the impression like Boruto was this bratty kid throughout all of part one, which obviously wasn't the case. But
Now
anyway.
fights as the world's main deterrent against the Shinju while casually utilizing techniques like the flying Raijin and the Rasengan Uzumaki. Boruto is a monster right now, capable of making someone as powerful as Code look like a complete joke. But as cool as his transformation has been, if we take a step back and look at Boruto solely as a protagonist, you start to realize Kishimoto took a massive risk with how he chose to handle timeskip Boruto. And if he's not careful, Boruto could potentially be seen as a bad protagonist. Let's think about it like this. Think back to when you were watching Naruto for the very first time. You just finished part 1, seeing Sasuke defeat Naruto in a legendary fight, and now you're about to start Shippuden. Now, imagine if Shippuden kicked off with Naruto returning from his time skip, already having mastered the Rasen Shuriken, Sage Mode, and already having a baseline control over the Nine Tails Chakra. That sounds crazy, right? You've essentially streamlined almost his entire journey as a ninja before the story even begins. But funnily enough, that's exactly what's happening with Boruto right now. And
There's a point I made on stream at one point regarding certain things power scaling wise. I wonder if that's the direction he's going to go in. Because on the thumbnail that he used for the video, he had like, oh, Boruto, a picture of Boruto, and it's like the text is too powerful. Alright, let's hear him out a bit first. Let me see where he's going with this.
And it starts from the beginning. Since chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex, Boruto almost feels like a video game character who's had his stats upgraded and completely maxed out. In fact, I made a quick checklist covering all the major techniques Boruto already had in his bag coming out of the time skip. We start with his elite Kenjutsu. Having trained under Sasuke, it's only natural he became a master when it comes to wielding a sword. Just think, as good as Sasuke is with a blade, Boruto basically has that same skill and proficiency now. Techniques like channeling lightning release chakra onto the blade to make it stronger are now comfortably in Boruto's bag. Basically, Sasuke passed down everything he could that did not involve a Sharingan. Next up on the list, we have...
I mean, the thing is, why I didn't really particularly mind, I personally don't really mind Boruto having this crazy arsenal, is that I don't mind X and Y happening in a story as long as there's context for it. We have the foundation of Boruto being a genius for the most part, and of course there's that additional potential with him being 100% Otsutsuki as well. So, and then you have Sasuke, who is a super elite god level shinobi, training with him. And it's not like Boruto was any slouch. Even before fully training with Sasuke during this time skip, like, definitely he was like, at the very least, high Chunin, low Jonin level in BS, I would say. So, I'm just saying the context is there.
Have the flying Raijin, and this one's no big deal. It's only the legendary space-time ninjutsu created by the second Hokage and perfected by Minato himself. Sometimes I still can't believe Boruto can just use this one so casually. It's one...
Well, I mean, it's more of an improvisation of the Otsutsuki instant teleportation, but via like dimensional portals. But I mean, technicalities, I mean, the result is the same. I guess you can say it's the same thing, I suppose.
One of the most mechanically complex techniques this series has to offer, and it's an awesome addition to Boruto's arsenal. Next up, we got his toad summonings, and while Boruto isn't a sage or anything like that, they still provide him with many tactical benefits like instant communication, or even just surveying the battlefield.
I mean, the tools that we see in Two Blue Vortex, aren't they all Kashin Koji's own? I don't particularly think Boruto has like a summoning contract per se. So I believe they're all Kashin Koji's own.
let's just say they make his life a lot easier as a rogue ninja. Then we got maybe Boruto's best jutsu, the Rasengan Uzumaki. This is the newest Rasengan variant that channels the rotation of the earth itself and inflicts all of that force in a devastating attack. But the scariest part is actually what happens next. Because once you get hit by this jutsu, you can't even operate properly anymore. All of that power and rotation completely destabilizes your balance, and it leaves you essentially unable to function. And finally, to round out the checklist, we have the karma. Of course, Boruto had the karma in part 1, and it's still a big part of his arsenal to this day. Now, when Two Blue Vortex first started, he was actually avoiding using the karma, but I guess now that we're dealing with the higher level Shinju, the karma is officially back in Boruto's rotation. So yeah, really take a look at that list. This isn't even everything he has, by the way, it's just the main staples. All of these techniques combined make Boruto into the monster we know him as today. But this is actually where the potentially fatal character flaw lies. Because while it's awesome to see Boruto this strong, it almost feels like the story skipped over his entire journey by having all of this growth take place off screen. I mean, across the time skip, we know he trained with Sasuke for a while until Code turned him into a tree. Then Boruto was able to link up with Kashin Koji, who transformed him into a complete powerhouse. And stepping back from Boruto's growth for a second, this is such an awesome premise for a time skip. Our main character is on the run, he has two very powerful teachers who both shaped him into a god tier shinobi. I mean, that's awesome. For me, it's far more interesting than Naruto's time skip ever was. But because time skips in general are just off-screen breaks in the story, we barely got to see anything from one of the most crucial and defining points in Boruto's life. I mean, he grows so much as a ninja during these 3 years, but unfortunately, it's all reduced to the occasional flashback panel. And look, do we technically have what we need when it comes to the time skip? Yeah, we do. We have Sasuke's sacrifice, and we have the beginning of Boruto x Kashin Koji.
I mean, I don't want to use the anime as like a cop-out or like as an excuse, even though the anime will more than likely expound on a lot of those flashbacks. But I think when it comes on to the manga, yeah, probably the thing that's missing or what's lacking when it comes on to Boruto, at least from my perspective, maybe that is shelved away in the flashbacks during his training, essentially. Because like Boruto's whole character and demeanor has really and truly like changed a lot. And for a lot of the time, for a lot of the flashbacks that we got, he seemed like he was his old self. So I think it would be interesting to see at what point, what was the turning point where he just fully adopts the whole Sasuke, you know, demeanor for the most part. So I think that's part of it. I can see where Wildfang is coming from, because Boruto being put in the situation that he's in power-wise right now, it's kind of like it doesn't really give him much opportunity to say struggle. And of course he has to depend on a lot of the other characters as it stands up to the latest chapter, but at the same time it's like it's not as much as say Naruto after the time skip. I would say debatable. I'd say, I don't know, there's something about how he's positioned relative to how Naruto was positioned in Shippuden or part 2 Naruto, where it's like yes, I can see where you're going for. And then when you consider the pacing of the manga as well, it's hard to say if we'll get that depth that we want from his character, from the manga at least, anytime soon, maybe. If I was a betting man, especially considering the flashbacks and all the training, it'll have to be something that kind of piggybacks or plays off the dynamic between him and Sarada or him and Himawari. So, yeah.
details that were immediately necessary for Two Blue Vortex to make sense are there. But even so, there's still so much that they left on the table. If I had to put a number to it, I'd say around 90 to 95% of Boruto's time skip journey is just left up to our interpretation. And that's fine, by the way. A time skip is meant to be largely glossed over, hence the phrase time skip. But when you choose to give your character an unreal amount of growth during a time skip, you are sort of taking away that classic grind which audiences connect with. And especially for the shonen genre, seeing the main character grinding in a classic training arc is what sets up the emotional payoff for when he finally does master that new power. Going back to Naruto, each new power he learned came with a huge set of obstacles, and we saw him hard at work pretty much the whole way through. Take the Rasen Shuriken. Naruto was grinding to learn this one with all of his shadow clones working overtime. He was
And I think me and Wildfang are pretty much on the same page here. But the only excuse I'll give Kishimoto and, well, our Ikimoto, our board, is that it depends on the intent. Like, what's the long-term intent that they're going for? Because of course, yeah, Naruto was all about effort and training and, overcoming your limit. Well, making the best out of the hand life gave you, essentially. But the whole dynamic and themes and stuff when it comes on to Boruto is a bit on the opposite end of the spectrum. New generation of characters have it easier, traditional ways of doing things versus the super easier way of doing things, essentially. So it depends on if you can get the emotional payoff from how they plan to carry out their intention with the themes that they're working with when it comes on to Boruto. So, but it's still a waiting game at this point to actually see that.
able to develop a dangerous new jutsu, but it posed a risk each time he used it. It would shred his hand. But we got to see him accept those risks and still use it when he deemed necessary. Same thing goes for Sage Mode. After Jiraiya died, we saw Naruto grinding to master it. He was following in the footsteps of his fallen master, and as the audience, we were right there watching him grind. So when he finally mastered it and defeated Pain to protect the village, it was such a beautiful moment because, again, we were there every step of the way. You could say the same thing for KCM and almost every other power Naruto ever gets. The show does a fantastic job of taking us along for the ride. We see him struggle, we see him grind, and we see him fail. So when it comes time for him to master a new jutsu and defeat the enemy, it is such a satisfying payoff every time. But with Boruto and Two Blue Vortex, they went a completely different route by powering him up almost completely off screen. And hey, I'm sure he'll get some new powers that he'll work very hard for in the future, but we're about to be 35 chapters in, and so far, he hasn't really needed to learn anything new. Now, there are two sides to this argument, and we will get into the other side here in a second, but I feel like you have to acknowledge when you have a character getting insane off-screen power-ups, defeating powerful villains like it's nothing, and then having him constantly swooping in to save the day, I mean, I fully understand why people struggle to connect with this new version of Boruto. I think he's awesome, but maybe he's too perfect in a way. I'd love to hear what you think. I thought those were some pretty valid points that tons of people agree with, but like we said earlier, there are two sides to this argument. So even though having most of Boruto's growth take place in a time skip clashes with the classic shonen formula, it could also be seen as a very clever choice on Kishimoto's part. Upon its release, Two Blue Vortex marked a new era for the Boruto story and for the Naruto franchise. It was a fresh new beginning meant to bury sins of the past from part 1. So why would they have Boruto's character just conform to everything we'd expect from a typical shonen protagonist? Why not shake things up and have him stand out? Sure, upgrading him during the time skip leaves less room for him to get stronger on screen, but it also lets the story dedicate time to other important things, which Two Blue Vortex has been doing. We've developed all new, pretty terrifying villains with the Shinju. We explored more of the political side of this universe.
Yeah, that's 50-50-50 on the terrifying villains. But
with
Yeah,
Kobu recently, and we've even focused on themes of love and broken down what that means to different characters. Because most of the characters in this story are motivated by some version of love, whether they know it or not. And we've ultimately given some side characters real time to shine instead of just
true.
watching Boruto train.
That
So now I want to pass it to you. What do you think about Boruto's character in Two Blue Vortex? Is he a bad protagonist? And what do you think of him starting Two Blue Vortex at such a high level? Maybe you think it skips necessary moments, or maybe you think it's a good compromise so the story can move quicker. Be sure to comment all of your thoughts down below. I would love to hear what you think, but now I'll give you my take. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty difficult for me to come to a final verdict, because even though we're about to be 3 years into Two Blue Vortex, it still feels like there's so much more to come. A chapter a month certainly makes it feel like the story is going on for a while, but honestly, I don't even think we're halfway done yet. Hidari and Jura are gonna be big villains with even bigger arcs, and I don't even think they're endgame. Code is still hanging around.
if anybody thought like Hidari and Juro were endgame, like I don't think anybody thought that, to be honest.
Amado is very suspicious. Maybe there's another Otsutsuki on the horizon like Shibai, and then we still need Boruto to resolve things with Kawaki. So anyways, with so much left to go, it's hard to take a stance. Like yeah, as of right now, I'm a little disappointed we haven't really seen Boruto learn something new in real time, but again, maybe it's for the best. And I'm sure as the manga goes on, he's gonna get stronger and we're gonna see it in real time. But yeah guys, that's all I've got for Boruto. Is he a bad protagonist? I say no. I think his storyline from the start of Naruto Next Generations all the way to Two Blue Vortex is incredible. The amount of growth, the hardships, the lessons, it's all molded him into what he is now. I just think it's definitely a polarizing choice to power him up that much off screen. But hey, if you enjoyed the video, if you like Boruto, leave a like, subscribe,
Definitely
comment down
leaving a
below
like,
what you
of
want to
course.
see next, and I will see you guys in the next video.
All right, solid video, Wildfang. Solid video. I do like the silver linings he was highlighting, where because of how strong Boruto is, essentially you have an opportunity to focus on the side cast, other characters, other aspects of the story, which for real, Two Blue Vortex has been doing. Yo, even that Inojin win for the end of the last arc, yo, that was sick. Like, can you imagine Sai beating Madara or something? I feel like it's comparable to that, almost, basically. But just to even answer the question, I don't think Boruto is a bad protagonist. I think he's okay. In terms of powering him up that much, as I said, I personally didn't mind, because the context, I think the foundation is there for him to be that or get that strong. I mean, an Otsutsuki training, Boruto himself was never really a slouch. He's a genius, right? So, and then thinking about the persons who taught him and the context of how they taught him, then it's like, yeah, I think it makes sense that Boruto is as powerful as he is. But yeah, I can see where you're saying that at the same time, because of that, it kind of makes it a bit hard to like connect with him on any like emotional standpoint. Like, you love the badassness, you love that he's versatile in terms of his moveset. Makes the fights more dynamic when it comes on to him. I'd say very interesting to watch and see how he kind of uses things, strategizes. I think that's a next perk when it comes on to Boruto and where he is right now in the story. But to me, I think, again, yeah, the biggest thing is, and Wildfang was basically pointing it out, that like more than like a lot of the things that would have made us connect with Boruto as it stands right now, Two Blue Vortex wise, was in the time skip itself. Because as I was saying in my initial 2 cents, is that the whole plot line of, oh, those blue eyes will take everything from you, kind of fell flat, to say the least. It was actually kind of disappointing seeing Momoshiki just, bet everything on this whole, partial future that he saw. But it feels like the emotional connection, the despair, the overcoming, and triumphing over the whole omnipotent switch. It feels like we didn't really get to experience that per se as the reader. And I know, of course, the whole omnipotence plotline hasn't been resolved. Everybody still thinks Kawaki is Naruto's son, and Boruto was the person from Kara. But it feels like almost a nothing burger. I think that's the best way I could actually describe it. And then I guess that combined with how strong he is doesn't really give us much time to like connect with him that way, right? Because like again, even pre-time skip, again, I think most of his development definitely comes from the Momoshiki arc and coming out of the initial O/start of the Kara arc, really and truly. I think again after that he's pretty like just consistent. I don't really feel like a big jump in like, oh, Boruto's become such a deeper character. Like he's alright. Like so that's the thing, but at the end of the day. So yeah. Yeah. But again, as I said, it comes down to how they plan to juggle their intent for him and juggle that with the themes. I get what he was saying in terms of comparing it to Naruto and etc. But given the themes of Boruto, it kind of makes sense why we don't see that. But at the end of the day, when it comes on to Boruto being a quote unquote like taking the next step to becoming like an even better character, it depends on the intent they have for his character and then how they're going to pull that or connect that with the overarching themes of the story. That's when we'll probably get the emotional payoff to connect with his character, really and truly. And of course, I think the anime is going to do a decent job of actually like fleshing out a lot of this more. But if you ask me, I think Boruto in Two Blue Vortex needs more. He needs more. I think I saw a glimpse of it when we had him sit down with Sumere and Sarada before Mitsuki attacked him in early Boruto or early Boruto TBV. I think he needs to really sit down and interact with a lot of the characters. He feels really and truly too hands off. And I think we're really and truly building because persons, characters, given they're under the influence of omnipotence, are starting to warm up to him a bit more. So when we get to see him like sit down and get to interact with certain characters, I think we'll get to see more of that emotional connection from us the readers to Boruto the character come out a bit more. I know some persons probably don't have a problem with Boruto, like, and it's not that it's a problem, but it's just that for me, it just feels like he's lacking something outside of he has the moveset, he has the power, he has the badass vibe, he has the Uchiha vibe, he has the Sasuke aura, but it's like outside of that, that's what I'm saying. But anyway, I think this was a solid video, Wildfang. You guys can let me know what you thought about my thoughts on Wildfang, as well as my thoughts overall when it comes on to Boruto as a character. So yeah. Anyway, Sandra Uchiha, leave a like, let me know your thoughts. Let's see if we can get a discussion going. Of course, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.